Hello and welcome to the Mulliner and Musgrove show with me, Andrew Musgrove, and him, Sam Mulliner. And ladies and gents, if only you could see into the green room before we come on to your screens. We were dancing away there to the theme music, weren't we, Sam?
Always do, mate.
Love it. What a wonderful way to start an episode. Welcome back to the podcast. You well?
No, I'm coming down with something. I don't know whether the pollen count is high today or whether I'm just because I've obviously came back from Portugal last week, which was 30 degrees every day to England to this garbage weather. I don't know whether that's affecting me, but I just feel a bit under the weather. But I'll soldier on.
He's got the holiday blues, but thank you for getting
Oh
off your
yeah.
sick bed and popping on to. We are recording this on Monday morning. You will hear it or watch it on Tuesday morning.
Oh.
Sam is going to talk about centre back options for Newcastle United, and in particular, Marc Guehi alternatives. For what it's worth, I still think Marc Guehi is Newcastle's number one target this summer. I think he's top of the list. I think he will end up a Newcastle United player, although it might not happen as quickly as we will like. Certainly won't drag out like last summer, but I think Newcastle United are going to do their utmost to sign him. Price-wise, 40 to 50 million. I think a lot rests on what happens with Palace and whether they manage to get in to Europe or not. I imagine they will do. It'd be pretty harsh if they get kicked out because of their co-owners' other interests. But Sam, you think there are alternatives out there to Marc Guehi. Do you want to start to explain why Marc Guehi maybe isn't your number one choice at centre back?
Well. Let's just hold your horses right there. I'm a Marc Guehi fan first and foremost. Someone that has been on my radar for a good few years, and I think it'd be a very, very good signing, Guehi. I'm glad we didn't sign him last summer because of the whole price tag and the furore around it, and being mucked about by Simon Parish and Crystal Palace and Steve Parish. Even I'm getting mixed up between Simon Jordan. But yeah, that, and then there would have been PSR issues as well. Had we signed Guehi last summer, we'd have probably had to have sold someone, which we wouldn't like to do. But yeah, Guehi as a top target is fine. There are a number of alternatives that make my special list. Obviously, last week when we did Kubo, you didn't really allow me to go into alternatives because you just wanted me to talk about Kubo for an hour, which is fine, gladly. But yeah, there are other alternatives, your Akalushis, your Bakayokos of this world, and you can't say Sows as well, who got hooked half time. By Portugal in the Conference League. My word, what am I on about? The Nations League final, which they eventually won on penalties. But yeah, there might be some better value. Obviously, I think our kind of next centre back signing will be the long-term partner for Sven Botman, in essence, if Botman can stay fit. And yeah, this is very much an area that hasn't been invested in terms of the right-hand side of that centre of defence. Obviously, we've got Byrne and Botman on the left since the takeover, but we've just got Cher, and we're entering a bit of a transitional time. Obviously, Byrne's got an extra couple of years. Cher got an extra year. Lascelles got an extra year, which I have no problem with. If anything, if you were signing one of these alternatives, well, especially particularly two out of the three I'm going to present to you, then a transitional time would probably benefit them. But yeah, I mean, Gehi is a fantastic player. I would still have him down as England's number one centre back, I think.
Well, you say alternatives, and obviously I've seen the list before you reveal it. But the three you've presented will cost around the same, if not more, than Guy. So, what, in terms of that definition of alternative, are you presenting me in terms of a better centre back? Because it's certainly not better value for money, or is it? Is that the case you're going to put across with these three names?
Two out of the three will definitely be cheaper.
You reckon? Not from the
Uh,
reports I've been reading and done a little bit of research, but okay,
No,
fair enough.
the second one you could say is probably will cost alongside of the certainly what Palace would ask for Gehi, but the other two are slightly cheaper. But you have to remember, like I say, this is going to be one of the major signings of the summer. This is going to be one of the ones where we shell out a good number of tens of millions of pounds on, along with right wing. So yeah, these aren't kind of bargain bucket transfers that we used to have to shop around with. These are centre halves that aren't going to be good signings, but potential to be great signings, hopefully, and to aid our cause to compete on all fronts, including the Champions League.
Well, having read up on the chaps that you've got down on your list, I'll come back to you when it comes to reported value, because, as I say, the research I've done's got every one of them above £50 million. So we'll come on to that in a moment. But on Marc Guehi, for me, I think if you manage to get him for anywhere below 60 million, I know he's only got a year left on his deal. So some people will say, whoa, we can't be paying 55, 50 million for him, given he's only got 12 months left on his contract. But
I'd
I
agree
still
with
think
them.
that you would agree. So let's start with Guehi before we go on to the alternatives then. He's got a year left on his deal. Only 24, though. England international, 132 Premier League appearances. What represents good value for money when it comes to Guehi, given the situation he's in, assuming he doesn't sign a new deal?
It is a tricky situation. Let's not undermine that point. Obviously, Palace will negotiate very, very hard, given their fantastic position, and they have every right to. It's not a case of Newcastle come calling and off you trot, because we kind of don't have that power as much as Arsenal and Liverpool don't when they come after our sort of players, as we've seen with Isak. So. It is going to be a tricky one, but something I saw published on the Chronicle of the weekend just made me think, and those who saw that will kind of know where I'm going with it. I mean, Palace have the potential to do some really great business in that area of the field should they sell Guehi, but you would, like you say, one year left on his deal. What wages would he command? Would we be given a shock akin to Mbermo? You would certainly hope not, because Guehi has a much more kind of pleasing attitude than Mbermo turned out to have. Yeah, so Guehi, what would he command? Certainly in the kind of six figures per week sort of thing, but you would certainly hope that he would fit into Newcastle's current wage structure as it stands, and earn alongside that of a Bruno, a Tonali, a Botman, that sort of thing. I don't quite know what he's on at Palace. If you know there in your news hub, I'd be very intrigued to learn, but I can see I can't see how a move to Newcastle wouldn't benefit him with a serious bump in wages.
Said to be £50,000 a week, which seems a little bit low if I was going to be putting estimates out there, but that certainly gives Newcastle United
I think that's
room to
about right
work with.
for a Crystal Palace. Well, I mean, they're not the biggest spenders. Obviously, they're relatively well back now, with a kind of stakeholder, which presents its own challenges, as you mentioned, with the Europa League quandary in Lyon and all that. So yeah, he could quite easily double his wages and sign for Newcastle on a 5-6 year deal. No bother.
For me, if I see Guy signing for, let's say, £50 million, and again, I know a lot of people will turn their noses up at that value because of his contract. I actually think it's not the worst deal in the world. What would he be worth if he was under another 2 years on his deal? He'd be worth probably double that, potentially, because he is a top player, as you said, arguably England's best centre back. So I think sometimes you just got to kind of bite the bullet. And yes, it may seem a little bit over the top what you've paid, but 24 years of age, best years ahead of him. We know how good he is. He's got a good injury record. I know 40, 50 million quid. I'm all over that, I think. And I do think Newcastle will push their utmost to get this deal done. I think they'll want to get it done quickly. I think they may have to wait a little bit longer than they would like. But I could see Guy being a Newcastle United player come the end of the transfer window. And look, if it turns out Steve Parish doesn't want to sell, or Newcastle aren't going to meet the asking price, what we don't want to see is a drag on like last summer, as I've said. So hopefully one way or another, we will get an answer, fingers crossed, before they fly out to Asia on their pre-season tour. Come on then, Sam, hit us with your wild card, because you've got a list of three.
Okay.
and we will reveal your number one at the end of the show. But come on then, who is your wild card?
Okay, I thought we were going to go first choice, second choice, wild card, because wild card is someone you normally leave to the end. But we'll do the wild card first. 21 years of age, Italian international, Mr. Giorgio Scalvini from Atalanta is my wild card selection. Are you intrigued?
I am intrigued.
So he can play on either side of the centre of defence. He's kind of like at the moment for Atalanta, a kind of like a Davide Santemo, where he's right-footed but plays on the left-hand side. I suppose that's similar to what Guehi's doing as well for Palace. But yeah, they got him from the Brescia Academy, where he would have played alongside your friend and mine, Mr. Sandro Tonali. He was part of the squad that won the Europa League. When the Europa League actually had a good final, when they played Bayer Leverkusen and beat them very comprehensively, when Leverkusen were clear favourites for that final. And he's got bags of potential, really has. I mean, if we were going for kind of dream kind of centre half signings, you'd probably look at a Bastoni if you were looking at Serie A from Inter Milan, although Champions League final aside. Scalvini has everything that it takes to be as good as Bastoni, or maybe even more. Obviously, he's 21 years of age. He's got the world at his feet and potential, and kind of like what I look out for is for these kind of players is they're as I've mentioned before, you don't necessarily, or I don't necessarily look at what they've done last season or whatever on the bare numbers like Kubo, but what they're capable of, what they've got the potential to achieve, how high is their ceiling. And given that, as we mentioned before, it's a bit of a transitional season in terms of the centre half area. Scalvini could take his time next season and adapt to the English game, which can be troublesome for players signing from Serie A. But I mean, Tonali's adapted all right, hasn't he?
He's done all right. Injury wise, though, he did miss a lot of football last season. January to May, he was out. He also missed a month between, I think it was December and January, with a shoulder injury. Now, we know shoulder injuries can be particularly troublesome. We've seen Nick Pope struggle with a similar ailment. Does that concern you?
Yes and no. Obviously, it's always a concern. However, if that's the case, we wouldn't have signed Tino Livramento with his ACL issues, and that hasn't reared its ugly head. Touch wood, as of yet. And obviously, it could go the other way, like a Callum Wilson, who's obviously invaluable when fully fit and firing. But yeah, we all know the frustrations from the season just gone by, and I don't know the situation other than what was announced by the club the other day about his kind of transfer contract talks. I would certainly hope that would be on a pay as you play basis rather than a fully wound up contract. But Scalvini he's probably going to be the cheapest option of everyone we talk about. But you're going to hit me now with some kind of ridiculous valuation you've seen on the internet.
Yeah, well, various reports, and they are just reports that Liverpool and Manchester United have an interest in this chap, and the starting bid would have to be £51 million
Twaddle.
to even get them around the table. You're shaking head.
Have
Look, we
you
don't.
been looking at Twitter again? And is this from the same source that you said that Arsenal and Liverpool wanted Kubo last week?
These, I'm not even going to bother name the source because exactly, I don't think it's all that reputable. But the point being
Well,
is that
shame on you for bringing it up then.
no, but I mean, okay, what are you expecting him to go for in your wisdom?
35
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I
with
mean,
add-ons.
21. I mean, add-ons could be key here,
There's
couldn't it, with
always
some of
going to
these
be
deals?
add-ons, isn't there, for a player of that age and sell on whatevers and this, that, and the other. Look, I'm not a sporting director. I'm a bloody nobody. So look, this is just me purely speculating. But I'd like to think my track record's decent enough on these things, but yeah, I wouldn't. I would say 50 is excessive for like you say there to kickstart a conversation about a transfer.
It was Italian media who report that it would take 51 million for
Does
Manchester
it
United to
begin with a
sign the player.
C?
It does, and we'll leave it there. But we have to be realistic with some of these price tags, and a young man like him, his club and their board or transfer chiefs are not going to be letting him go cheap at all. But yes, add-ons, sell-on clauses, all that will help get the price down. All right, then from Scalvini to your second choice, and it's a man who's impressed in the Premier League.
Massively so, and this one is going to be a similar cost to Gehi. There's no two ways about it. Ilya Zabani from Bournemouth, who I think has actually gone under the radar a little bit because of his partner Dean Howson going to Real Madrid. I think Zabani's been as good, if not a little bit better than Howson. I've got to be honest. I think he's absolutely tremendous. I can't see this happening because Bournemouth have got him nailed down till the summer of 2029. And he's still 22 years of age, and he's been in the Ukraine setup for years. I mean, I think he's knocking on the door of 50 caps already. At the tender age of 22, they've signed an absolute gem from Dynamo Kiev, and just what a bit of scouting that is from Bournemouth. Credit to them. I think he's a tremendous player, and I think, as I say, having Howson alongside him, that partnership was tremendous throughout the season. I mean, the way they dealt with Isak it's just brilliant. I think he's great. I really do. I think it'll be probably the most difficult deal to do out of the four players we're going to talk about. Obviously, Gehi, Scalvini, Zabani, and the other unnamed so far. But yeah, I think he's a tremendous talent. I really do.
Well, he's been linked to PSG in the last week or so. Apparently, they're dead keen on him.
They don't need him.
Well, they obviously want to add depth to that centre back area. I know they've got obviously a few world class centre backs to already pick, but again, you go and look at the reports, several reports, and of a decent nature, suggesting that they've at least asked the question about him. £70 million is the starting price, apparently.
I wouldn't go. Well, that's a bit.
You said it yourself, decent contract, very impressive.
Yeah, I was thinking along the lines of the 50 to 60 that we speak about to Gehi, not starting at 70. I would say that's excessive.
But look, Bournemouth have lost Howson. Okay, it was a well-known get-out clause for him that Real Madrid met. They're not in a position where they need to sell. They probably don't want to sell their other half of that brilliant partnership, as you mentioned. Good contract means the power's in their hands. So unless he goes knocking on the door and says, I want to leave, they can demand what they want. And why shouldn't they demand £70 million for, as you say, someone who's been so impressive, but perhaps forgotten about or gone under the radar, unless you're PSG, of course. So, £70 million, that's their prerogative, I guess. But interestingly, you mentioned there, obviously came from Dynamo Kiev, and you look around at other potential alternatives. And I know Murillo plays on the left-hand side, the Nottingham Forest Brazilian centre-back, but look where he came from Corinthians, and there's a lot of centre-backs who've come from nowhere in terms of that big profile or that big team. And I'm really intrigued to get your thoughts on this, Sam, because I think we all accept that this summer has to be a brilliant window for Newcastle United. In an ideal world, you want that big profile coming in, someone who is going to hit the ground running. A lot of people want to have heard of said player. So Marc Guehi ticks that box because he's been tremendous in the Premier League. He's in England in international. He's scored 12,000 goals for us despite playing for Crystal Palace. So, we know who he is. But imagine if Newcastle did go out and sign the next Murillo from Corinthians or the next Zabani from Dynamo Kiev. And what do you reckon the reaction would be if it was one of those players coming from a team that maybe we don't watch week in, week out, or it's not a player we heard of? Do you think that would go down well initially?
I don't think it matters how it goes down, to be brutally honest. I think that's the way we should be going about things. It doesn't matter whether we've heard of, like, whether, like, the casual fan has heard of them or not. The casual fan probably didn't know who Alexander Isak was. Would they have known who Tonali was? I don't know, potentially. Bruno was relatively unknown to Premier League fans when he was signed. Um, I think it's completely irrelevant. And to be honest, I would rather do things that way around because, all right, if it was us, you'd be where Bournemouth is now. You've got a fantastic player who is wanted by top teams. Let's cut out the middleman and sign these players before they get ridiculously expensive. So, like, you don't want to be paying £70 million for a centre back, do you? You want to be plucking a bit of value. That's where your scouting network really comes to the fore. If you had Joe Linton in his present guise, being an absolute midfield, just
Tank.
Brazilian bull, playing for Leeds United, for example, players are going to clubs would be queuing up to sign him for 70-80 million pounds, and all of a sudden we've got him for 40 million. And yes, it's been a long way of getting there, but that 40 million all of a sudden looks an absolute snip. And he's so crucial for us, like the Joe Linton is. And he riles up teams the wrong way. He's still an absolute general in the engine room, isn't he? So whether you've heard of players or not, it's pretty irrelevant. You want to trust your scouting network and your recruitment team know what they're doing, and I believe they do. Having said that, the names, some of the names being linked aren't wholly filling me with enthusiasm, but again, that's irrelevant. It's Eddie Howe's job to get the most out of them on the training ground and ultimately on the playing pitch.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens overall with Newcastle's transfer strategy, because back in January, I mean, they thought they had the deal done and dusted for the chap who joined Man City from Lens, wasn't it? And he came from the young
Kusanov, yeah,
centre
well, I
back.
told you at the time, City have overpaid.
Yeah, but the point being, someone who's young, new to the scene, who cost Lens next to nothing, and then in the grand scheme of things, isn't a big outlay, and that's something that Newcastle thought they had sorted. And obviously, he's ended up going to City. They've managed to jump Newcastle on the deal. But you wonder whether that's a Paul Mitchell strategy, whether that's an Eddie Howe strategy and a Steve Nixon strategy. It's going to be interesting to see when Paul Mitchell leaves, if Newcastle maybe deviate away from that kind of movement and do go for more established players, which I do think Eddie Howe needs, especially with this the season coming up. But also it's a balance and looking for value for money as well. I mean, it's in a minefield, isn't it? Who would want to be in charge of transfers for Newcastle
Me,
United? Certainly not me.
I would
You
love
wouldn't.
it.
It would keep you awake, mate.
Yeah,
Your
it would.
lovely black hair would soon be grey, just like that.
Black,
It is, isn't it? Or brown.
brown.
Is it brown? Anyway, it would be grey within a
Yes,
matter of
it's
months,
brown.
if not bald, mate. So you wouldn't want the job. Talk to us about your number one pick. I mean, it's no secret. He's got a
No,
poster on your wall alongside Kubu. So name him, though, for those who maybe are living under a rock.
Usman Diomande from Sporting Lisbon. Again, another 21-year-old. He's an Ivory Coast international. Was part of the squad, that chaotic squad that changed their manager halfway through AFCON and then ended up winning the tournament. He is by far and away the top of my list, by far. And the whole story in relation to that was Crystal Palace was eyeing up Diomande to replace Guehi. If I was a Crystal Palace fan, I'd be in dreamland with that particular deal, because whilst you're losing a very good player in Marc Guehi, you'd be earning some money and then replacing him with someone with a potentially higher ceiling than Gay. I have to be honest. Diomande would suit us down to the ground. Plays out from the back. He's good on the ball. He's quick for a centre half, and he reads the game very well to boot. So he's got all the kind of attributes you would need. I mean, going back to, I mean, centre halves aren't normally blessed with pace. Their attributes is being able to read the game, and that's how, Nobby Solano once told me when interviewing him, the first 3 yards are in your head, sort of thing, and anticipating. But yeah, Diomande has a good football brain. Yes, he's playing in the Portuguese league, which is a mixed bag, but I can't see that as a relevant point, to be honest. Again, like I said last week, I don't get bogged down in stats and figures and whatnot. I kind of trust my eye more and what you see from watching him. I love him to bits. I think this guy's going to be special, and I think if he goes to a Crystal Palace, then you could, in a couple of years' time, if he takes to the Premier League like I think he's going to do, then all of a sudden your big teams are going to be queuing up, and he could cost upwards of 80, 100 million easily.
So you mentioned there you think he's going to have a higher ceiling than Guehi, but right now, what makes him a better player than Guehi that makes you want Newcastle to sign him ahead of Guehi?
Is he a better player than Guehi now?
That's the question I'm asking you.
Yeah, I know. Probably not, but like I said, at the top, that we are in a kind of season now where we have a kind of transitional kind of centre half placings with arguably, I suppose, strength in depth, you would call it. Were we to add someone like Diomande to our ranks, we could alternate him and share, and you've still got Lascelles as a backup, and Burnham Botman for the left. The problem as well you've got is, a lot of these kind of young top rated centre backs are all on the left. So like Jarell Hatto from Ajax, who's been linked to Chelsea amongst everyone else. I mean, Chelsea have signed someone this morning, Sarr from Strasbourg, which I actually think is a good bit of business as well.
It is a good bit of business
Unfortunately,
for £12 million. I mean, we're
yeah,
not going to delve
that's an absolute.
into the links between the two clubs because we could be here all day, and also probably get a visit from a lawyer or two. But I mean, it's a good deal, especially for that amount of money. But I have got another Strasbourg man on the list actually to talk about
Good,
later. But
because
continue with your point there.
they've got some very high players of high potential in that squad. They've had a fantastic season too, Strasbourg. But yeah, that Chelsea deal for Sarr is good, unfortunately. But yeah, and the whole point of, we mentioned last week, had Dortmund not just qualified for the Champions League on the last day of the season, thanks to Freiburg bottling it, then you could potentially be looking at a Schlotterbeck as well being available, which would have been a dream signing. But again, he's left-footed.
Injured as well, isn't he? He's out for the next few months.
Yeah, I get that, but you can't let an injury put you off. He's an absolute world-class centre back. But yeah, Diomande could be as well. But right
Well,
in this present of time, Guehi has a few more years on him. Obviously, that Premier League proven, which people like. Yeah, again, I'm not against Guehi, so I can't make a compelling argument because I'd be happy with either. But if I was Palace, then signing Diomande well, it wouldn't feel like a blow losing Guehi.
hmm. But you mentioned there, obviously he's playing in the Portuguese top flight, and we've seen players from that league come out of the Premier League, and it's not quite worked out. I mean, I'm going to talk about West Ham centre back who played in the French top flight, Jean-Claire Todibo. I can't even say it.
Tadibo, yeah,
Put it out
I
there.
was,
Now,
yeah,
he was linked with Newcastle United quite strongly last summer.
he
He's gone to
was.
West Ham initially on loan. They've made the transfer permanent in the last few days. He had a shock of a season. You watch the highlights of the last campaign, and I think he'd struggle to put a minute together. He looked so slow. He looked off the pace, but he came with such a high reputation. He'd been brilliant for Nice in Ligue 1. And it is that sort of question mark over what we perceive to be inferior leagues and standards. Like, it's not an easy transition for everybody, is it?
No, of course it's not. You either adapt and develop and evolve as a player, as I said, or you get left behind. It's simple as that. That's why not all transfers go well. Yeah, I thought that was a great buy for West Ham last season. I thought that was a great deal. There was a few like that though for West Ham last year. I thought Fulkrug was quite a shrewd signing. because he played so well against us for Dortmund in the Champions League. He was an absolute thorn in our side. But such is the nature of football. It's not as simple as that, is it? So, yeah, whatever. Every signing's a risk. Every signing is a risk. You can, like we've signed some players in the past. Like, look at Jamal Lewis. Nearly everyone thought that's a great bit of business. That is really good potential. Fantastic. Well done, Lee Charnley. Uh, yeah, but for some reason or another, it just did not work out one bit. And I kind of feel sorry for the kid because he's been unlucky with injuries as well. And there's a guy that just needs to stay injury free and just have a good season playing football, whether it's in the championship or whatever. But yeah, it's a mystery because I thought at the time that was a great transfer for what we needed at the time. Obviously, we have our sights set higher these days because we need a couple of signings that could potentially go on to be great players, like the spine of our team is Isak, Bruno, Tonali, Botman. Those are players that can be great players, not just good players, which I think is the issue surrounding your likes of Elanga and Pedro and very good players, but do they have the potential to be great? I'm not so sure.
There's one there we wait and see when it comes to the likes of Alanga and Co. But yeah, watch Tadibo now have an absolute storming season for West Ham
He
after
could.
he was absolutely slid. But look, we saw it with Colaccini, remember? Shocker in his first season, goes down to the championship, excels, comes up. He's in the team of the year after. So it sometimes does just take a little bit to get settled. I'm sure Tadibo's reputation that was built upon some good performances for Nice, and he may have a good season to come. So
Which
there
is
we
why
go.
this
There's
season, as I say, you have the opportunity to be able to kind of slowly introduce, which Howe likes to do anyway. We saw that with Bruno and Tonali, he was quite reserved with before finally finding his proper position. So there's no reason why you couldn't sign a Diamande and dovetailing him with Fabian Schär this season.
Nope, indeed. So you've got Sam's 3 picks there. I'm going to present Sam with some alternatives and get his viewpoint on them. But first, big thanks to Sealy for sponsoring the podcast. It's a new eSIM service app brought to you by the creators of NordVPN. You can choose from several affordable eSIM data plans in over 200 destinations. With a Sealy eSIM, you'll always have a connection when needed. Why Sealy? Well, if you've ever been lost abroad or badly needed an internet connection with no Wi-Fi spot in sight, you'll understand what a difference a local SIM card can make. An eSIM provides an internet connection wherever you are, wherever you travel, and saves you money on roaming fees. You can save time, choose from global and regional plans. It's affordable. You download the app once and away you go. And there's also 24/7 support available, which is always dead important. So if you want a discounted offer on your eSIM in time for your summer holidays, hit the link in the podcast description box. You're supporting the podcast and getting a really good deal at the same time. Right, Sam, are you ready for some alternatives? I want to
Yeah, I'm
get
really
your
interested because unlike you, who asks me for my list before we record, I don't do the same. So I'm quite intrigued here.
okay, not necessarily my kind of picks because I'd like to say I think Guy's the one that they'll be going after and the one
No,
I'd
but
like
it's
to see
like
them
it's
complete.
it's like
But
last week, isn't it? Listeners and viewers sent in their kind of picks, and it was very interesting.
Um, Taylor Harwood Bellis was the first one that popped into my mind. 23 years
Uh-huh.
old, 34 Premier League appearances last season, England call up, Chelsea and West Ham linked, obviously former Man City youth player as well. He did cost Southampton £20 million. I think it was at the beginning of last season. So that already tells you at least it's going to cost you £20 million. But given he had a decent enough season in what was a horrendous campaign for Southampton, you're probably looking at maybe double that, I would say. Thoughts on him?
Yeah, this fits into your mold of kind of harvesting players from relegated teams. I know you do enjoy that. I like him. I think he has more to give. I wouldn't want to be spending much more than what Southampton paid for him, but I think um, there's a player in there. Yeah, obviously that Southampton team was broadly shocking. So putting him in and surrounding him with better caliber of players, then you could bring out more from him. And yeah, I wouldn't say no.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, with them signing him from Man City, and the next man on my list is Callum Doyle, who's still at Man City, and he's been on loan at Sunderland and Coventry, Leicester, Norwich. So obviously played for teams well inferior to Newcastle United. But before we get on to Doyle, specifically, you spoke about Newcastle having to cut the middleman out, and what we do see often is teams sign these prospects from the likes of City and other top sides where they can't break through. I mean, you could even chuck Cole Palmer in there for an example.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they excel and they become these top players. I mean, Chelsea's done it quite often, haven't they? Signed 2 or 3 from City. That's maybe somewhere when Newcastle United need to go. And again, you shut out the noise of fans on social media. Say, you're picking up, reserve players from City who can't break into Pep's side. Why they're good enough for us, sort of thing. But you go and sign, these players, Harwood Bellis, for example, for £20 million last summer, and you just saved yourself probably 15, 20 million perhaps the summer after if you were going to go and get them. So maybe that's what we need to be looking at as well.
Yeah, and Chelsea do the same as City as well, which gives them PSR headroom, as well as the kind of more questionable dealings regarding hotels and women's team sales and whatnot. But yeah, kind of selling academies products for decent amounts is what gives, for pure profit as well, is gives them that headroom. So I'm guessing when we discuss like midfielders, you'd be fronting up for James McAtee.
Yeah, I do. I think he's got talent and ability, and it's a bit of a gamble, maybe because we haven't seen him in a prolonged period of time in terms of game, week after week. But
if we were to sell a Willock or a Longstaff sort of thing, then you would be eyeing up McAtee.
Yeah, and maybe you would say Willock is ahead of him in terms of ability at this present point in time. But I think, especially with Willock and Longstaff, when it hasn't worked as it hasn't for both of them over a long period of time, sometimes it's about more than the ability of now. It's about becoming stale, and you just need that refresh. And moving someone like him on, bringing in McAtee, who's got another level or 2 to go. Yeah, that works for me. It does, because I think it's about freshening up the squad as much as it is about.
You're emphasising my point for Diamande over
No,
Guehi there.
no, I get that. I get that point. That did come through my mind as I said it. But yeah, look, there are bargains to be had from certain teams' youth ranks, and it's something that Newcastle particularly could look at, I think, to get themselves a bit of a bargain.
Chelsea have cherry picked so many kind of young players that haven't even hit Chelsea yet. If you kind of do your research into it, they've got first dibs on so many young players around the globe. Even in Brazil and stuff, it's ridiculous, and they could then sell them on for 20-25 mil at the age of 20-21 when they've had is loan moves, and then there you go, they've made profit.
Yeah, Callum Doyle. I know he's only played the Championship predominantly, but 21 years of age. What have you seen much of him? What do you make of him?
Limited, but yeah, I'm going to need selling on him. You're going to have to make a very good case for him for me to be remotely enthusiastic.
I'll be honest, I haven't seen a lot of him to be sitting here saying he
Why
needs
are
to
you
be
bringing him
number
up
one centre.
then?
I'm bringing him up based on reports that you read, the reputation that goes alongside him as someone who could potentially reach the very top.
Okay.
And it just re-emphasises the point about hitting City's youth ranks to find the next kind of big thing. That was more the point. I think he did impress though at Norwich, and albeit at Norwich in the Championship, and we're playing the Champions League. So I get the levels are different before anyone gets into the comments, but just because you're playing in the Championship doesn't mean you can't be a top quality centre back at a Champions League side. There are talents out there to be had at a much cheaper price. Sticking with the Championship, and this is
Grant
maybe
Hanley.
someone, Grant Hanley, yeah, bring him back, lads. This is someone that maybe isn't for the here and now, so it defeats the purpose of the episode a little bit, but someone definitely keep an eye on. Is the younger Van der Berg centre back. There's 2 of them. There's one at Brentford,
Yeah.
who we will talk about in a moment because Newcastle have watched him and do like him. But the younger one, who was at Middlesbrough down the road, 20 years of age, and he is tipped for big things. I mean, let's get a deal done this summer, send him back out on loan at the Borough for a season and bring him back next season.
That would enthuse me more. Maybe not send him back to Borough, but send him somewhere like we're going to do with Cordero, following that kind of Minter blueprint. Hopefully, Cordero will actually play for us though at some point, rather than score against us. That would be nice, a welcome change of pace. But the Vandenberg from Brentford doesn't do anything for me whatsoever. And if you were going to get someone like him, you would have got him. You would have stopped him going to Brentford essentially. But a younger one, a younger model, a kind of one that's kind of more highly touted and cheaper. Again, you could go down that path of the loan system if Shola can find a good loan move.
Well, one source says the younger Van der Berg will be playing at the top level in a couple of years. Not convinced he's ready to start week in, week out now in the Premier League, but in a couple of years, he'll be at the very top. So definitely one to watch potentially. But again, we're seeing teams do this, aren't we, where they are signing players and then, throwing them back out on loan to the club they've either just agreed to deal with or, elsewhere. And that's
it does work.
A good plan, yeah.
It does work, but I don't know why, but we seem to struggle sometimes in sending our good young players out on loan. We struggle to find them good loan moves, essentially, like Koala, and it only really worked for Minter. And maybe Elliot Anderson as well, that really breakthrough little campaign he had with Bristol Rovers. But that was probably too low a level for him in essence. But yeah, it's something that can, when done right, it can be really, really useful. And it's not something that we've ever really got a proper grip on, I don't think.
Yeah, something to improve on, hopefully, over the next few years. A couple more names then to throw at you. A man who was linked last summer and has been reportedly on the radar for quite a while is Edmund Tapsoba. You'll know him, given your love for European football.
Yes.
26.
Big fan. Very good. Very good. I can't see it happening though for one reason or another. I mean, if it does, great, because very talented guy. But again, there's question marks about. Off the top of my head, I don't know how long he's got left on his contract, and if it's more than a couple of years, then you're in kind of Guehi and Zabani money territory. But
2028.
yeah, it's going to be tricky then, isn't it?
Well, the last report I read was that he could be available for £50 million, but given his contract on the table, you would say that's probably a little bit unlikely. But correct me if I'm wrong, Leverkusen, haven't had the best of seasons. You've got Boniface, haven't you, as well, there
There's
as a
loads.
striker.
Leverkusen
Yeah.
have a fantastic squad. Obviously, they're going to be losing Wirtz, another player who I touted up 2 and a bit years ago. It will pain me dearly to see him move to Liverpool because he is going to be like, if he's not already one of the best 10 players in the world, he'll be top 5 soon enough. And that's going to break my soul somewhat seeing him do well for Liverpool. They've got loads and loads of talent in that squad. That's there for the taking. Obviously, Xabi Alonso moving on. So is there a bit of uncertainty? Eric Ten Hag taking the hot seat there at Leverkusen. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Certainly will do. But yeah, he's been linked to Tottenham in recent days. But like I say, price tag of £50 million is what the report touted. So maybe there could be a cheaper deal on the table. And the last name is Ismail Doucouré from Strasbourg. Obviously, he's just seen his partner join Chelsea. And ironically enough, Chelsea were linked to Kouré as well a few days back. The deal for Sarr that you mentioned was agreed back in January. So not obviously a surprise to anyone because we all knew it was going to happen. But Doucouré, 21 years of age, 32 appearances last season, under 21 French international. Again, another one who's impressed, but you look at it and say, well, it is Ligue 1, is it a gamble again? But have you seen much of him?
Bits and pieces when watching Ligue 1, not as much as I saw Desiree Doué. But Strasbourg have really got something going there. But obviously, there's every chance that that's just going to be completely torn up now because bigger teams from around Europe will kind of want to tear that squad up. So, kind of akin to Bournemouth and things like that with House. And we mentioned Zabani. There's a couple of others in that Bournemouth squad as well, isn't there? And again with Palace, obviously, it's kind of similar situation, isn't it? Strasbourg have got European football next season, but it ain't the big time. So yeah, there's a couple, and he's one of them. A few with real potential in that Strasbourg squad. So that could be an interesting one. But again, price wise, I'm not so sure.
Well, I mean, they've only got 12 million for Sarr, so maybe there's still a need.
But again, is that not with an affiliation kind of thing?
We
Who
can't say
knows?
that. It just obviously they're linked, same owners and what have you. So yeah, interesting there to delve deeper into that deal at some point. But they're all the alternatives. Let us know in the comments if we've missed anybody out. Let me know in the comments your order of those alternatives, and do any one of those names get above Marc Guehi on the list? For me, out of everyone we've mentioned, I still think Marc Guehi is the top of the list. I think the Premier League proven kind of element of his game is absolutely key. Good age, okay, like I say, he's probably still going to cost you the best part of £50 million. But in today's day and age, I don't think that's a bad price to be paying for a man of his talent with the best years ahead of him. I'd still be pushing Marc Guehi to St James's Park. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Obviously, Diamane, as you've said there, in Crystal Palace's interest, it looks like that is being done with the inevitability that Guehi leaves this summer. Newcastle will have the likes of Chelsea maybe still interested, although the Sarr deal may put that to bed. I still think Guehi and Newcastle will happen, though. Just my gut instinct, but I still think it'll happen.
If it does, great. Good signing. So long as we don't have our pants pulled down in terms of the fee. Yeah, he'll do a sterling job for us, and it would be a good a kind of good box ticked really in that part of the field. But if Palace get a good fee for him and manage to get Diamande for a bit of a snip, that would kind of narc me a little bit because, as I say, there's every chance in if that happens. In 2 or 3 years' time, then we could be talking 80 million upwards for that kid. So it'll be very, very interesting, whatever happens.
Well, one to keep an eye on. I'm sure the transfer gossip and transfer rumors will either entertain you lot or keep you awake at night like it does me. I just wanted to be September the 1st already, if I'm being honest.
Can you bring some reputable sources with you next time?
I've got some ketchup in my bag. Would you like that?
Yeah. Well, it's more reliable than the two sources you brought the last 2 weeks.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for the support and love shown by Sam. As always, thank you to you guys for watching and listening. You know what to do by now. Hit thumbs up, hit subscribe on the channel, leave us a rating and review on the audio-only platform. And remember to click on the link in the podcast description box to get your eSIM for your summer holidays provided by Saley. Thank you very much for watching, and me and Sam will catch up with you guys very, very soon.